Hello, I'm Jeremy Rivera, your unscripted SEO podcast host. I'm here with Virginia Elder. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your expertise and where it came from?
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy, for having me. I am Virginia Elder. I'm the owner of Podcast Abundance, which is a podcast production agency. And I often find myself educating clients, potential clients, podcast event attendees about podcast SEO. So I'm excited to talk about this today.
Fantastic. I think, as I mentioned before the interview, while we're riffing, that there is kind of a crunch in the SEO industry as HCU stripped away a huge chunk. I personally had 3 or 4 clients that just hit the bottom and haven't come back. Had friends who they hit the bottom and one managed to come back. But there's definitely SEO isn't dead, but I think that the golden age of SEO where all you had to do was edit some meta titles, throw in some headers, get some basic backlinks, and you're golden. Maybe there was enough work everywhere. There's kind of a lot of change going on. There's arguing whether is it GEO, AI SEO, EIEIO, as far as I'm optimizing for AI. I'm not so interested in those conversations per se, but more of pointing out that SEO needs to cross-channel more and understand different mediums, different channels and their opportunities. And obviously, since we're talking on a podcast, I think that there is tremendous value in this one-to-one conversation and human interaction. It can't be duplicated by AI. Personal chemistry with you, the conversation, the interaction of my experience with your experience as we thread the needle of our shared topics is something that, as I said in my interview with Jason Barnard of Calicube, it's information gain. It's a conversation where, if you asked AI about what is the value of podcasts, well, it's going to reference its database. It's going to make up 1/4 of it and mishmash it together and give you a Frankenstein answer, which is probably mostly accurate. But if you pull the veil back of the mystery of AI, it's just math. It's just guessing at the sentences that sound probably correct, but isn't actually based in reason or logic as you or I know it. Just the reason or logic of pure cold math. And it's going to get more and more stale as original sources. It's you have to go beyond 2014 to get non-AI influenced, non-LLMs influenced content. So our conversation is a pure line of genuine content.
Right, right. Well, and I think the concept that comes to mind is if we look at business, marketing, SEO through this holistic lens, podcast SEO has been a thing for a long time. YouTube SEO have been a thing for a long time. And for a while, we were all just very focused on website SEO, right? How do I get backlinks? How do I post enough, content on my niche topic and link to, other experts in the space and link my blog posts to each other and just kind of play this game on our website. And now with the changes, I think it becomes even more apparent, oh, there are other channels. Oh, maybe I should be using those channels to link to my website and vice versa, and those channels to link to each other and vice versa, right? And just kind of create this imaginary spider web of connections between our related content. And it's always been that way, but I think it's become so much more important now to just really utilize those other channels.
Absolutely. I was talking with my friend Michael McDougall of Right Thing Agency, and we're just kind of looking at how, websites used to be the center of the universe of SEO, and now you can have a business, viable business, that's entirely run off of Instagram and a link tree off of it,
That's
and never
amazing.
actually have a true website. It's crazy. I've
It's
seen it. I'm like,
wild.
it's wild, but it
Yep.
works in that
Yeah.
niche, in certain ecological niches there. But there's also, there's kind of this narrowing of this mentality where people are like, oh, I go on the internet, I go on Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, and Threads. You're like, there's a much bigger internet
There's
out
more
there.
internet. Yeah. Well, so I just got back from a conference and however many, just conversations here and there, but specifically I was on the train going back to the airport and was talking to this fella that owns like 3 or 4 real estate websites. And he's saying, oh, this one focuses on that, this one focuses on that. And he's explaining it all to me. And I was like, okay, so let's pull back for a second and think about who is visiting these websites. Is it, different people for different websites? Is it like the same kind of target audience? And depending on their age and stage of life and all that stuff, what is their social media behavior? Are they on Instagram? Are they a little bit older and so their primary thing is still Facebook? Are they business savvy enough to go, oh, you know what? Like LinkedIn is having this amazing revival right now. Like, let me double check my profile and make sure I'm, using LinkedIn articles and posts and, creating my featured stuff on my LinkedIn page, right? Yeah. And he's sitting there thinking, and he's like, oh my gosh, you're right. And so then during our conversation, I'm like, okay, let me follow you. And so we pull up his LinkedIn and I turn my phone around and I show him, did you know that you don't have a profile picture on LinkedIn? And he's like, oh my God, like instant embarrassment. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, I'm not the LinkedIn police, but hey, if other people are like me and they're looking to connect with you, or they're going to just go, okay, like, let me see what this guy is about. Go to all your socials and just make sure that your stuff is filled in. Make sure your easy SEO right here, like your description to your profile has what you do, who you are, what you're about, and what you want people to know about you. And so that was like an easy way that, we were talking about. It's not SEO necessarily, but that is the way the world is now. If you don't have an Instagram profile that has a recent post within the past 30 days, suddenly people of a certain age don't think that you're a legitimate business. And that is wild to me because you could have a website with thousands of visits per month. But since you didn't have this one thing that is what their generation looks at, suddenly you're not legitimate. So there's just like so much to think about now as far as
Absolutely.
where you're showing up, SEO
like
on all of those platforms.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think there's like a big need for cross-channel training, and a huge market opportunity, and it kind of ties into the concept of entities too. Like I was talking to Matt Brooks of Esoteric about how Google understands that a business is valid, and we all understand that there used to be yellow pages and you get listed and hey, that's a business. Well, I mean, there's a huge ecosystem now of like 500 different little sites where you can get a citation, but Google is really putting together information, and these LLM tools are now putting together information even more so just based off of an article existing somewhere else that says this fact about you, that says your company has 12 employees, and then if that's repeated on 2 other sites, that's validation even more so. Or that you are like, there are 5 different Jeremy Riveras that are notable. There's one who's a prep pastor, there's me, there's a baseball player, I don't know what team he's on, but if you ask LLMs 6 months ago, they were very confused, and they'd say that I was striking out and doing an evangelical conference and doing SEO. The more that I did podcasting, the more I got profiles out there, the better these LLM tools could separate out context of, oh, the digital marketing guy is this Jeremy Rivera. And, that's kind of going to be a bigger thing as these tools are unlike Google's, 10 links, these LLM tools
Yeah.
are more taking a solid first shot and guessing. And so you have to put more information into the system to get the answer out that you want, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. More and more in the podcast space, we've seen this move toward video. And, I will continue to emphasize that you do not have to be a YouTuber to have a podcast, but that is getting muddy, shall we say. But that is a great way to put your name, your voice, your face out with content that you stand by to distinguish yourself. Even if someone doesn't have a doppelganger or a duplicate name out there of some other famous Jeremy Rivera, but it's a great way to distinguish yourself. And so just a little context is that I primarily produce podcasts for financial professionals. So they could be a financial advisor, they could be a money coach, they could be a CPA, just anything in the financial space. That's my background. So there are a million financial advisors out there, and they all really do stand for different things. Some of them just want to sell you some life insurance. Some of them want to manage your investments, quote unquote, but then they want to just throw it in a fund and never actually do anything with it. But then there are some really good ones, right? And so those are the ones that I'm focused on trying to help them distinguish themselves with their podcast, with their video. And of course, we're able to pull that content on their website and make it, show that they are creating fresh content every week and, working on that content to where they can link to other creators, other financial experts, big financial websites, and hopefully get quoted in, whatever Yahoo Market article. It's it's this holistic perspective of how do you get your voice and your messaging out there. And yes, it's an attraction piece, but that's kind of just how you're going to stand out these days.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about your background that brought you to podcasting as a producer. Was that something that came out of college or a previous experience? And how did that experience lend or push you into the vein you're in now?
Yeah, so I was literally pushed. So my background is accounting and information management. I did audit here in Texas for sales tax for a really long time. Before that, I managed contracts at a construction company. So that management piece with the audit piece, I was enjoying my career, but we were also going through our own little personal financial revival, privately, right? Because nobody talks about money, and that's part of the problem. And so the way that I found guidance and help was through podcasts. So I would sit there and listen to various financial creators. Everybody knows Dave Ramsey, but he's only one, and he has a very singular lane view of finances. So he's a great place to start. But then after a while, you kind of go, okay, well, I need more than this. I need someone who's not going to demean me for going out to eat, right? I need a more holistic way to manage my money.
Because intensity. I did the university. So I did that 8 years ago with my wife, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, I need a financial advisor who's going to be not mean for if I have a cup of coffee. Is gives that intensity. I get that, but actually what I need is a way for my money for you to show me how to make my money make me be able to have coffee guilt-free as part of this matrix.
Right.
Of how do I put my money to work for me? Which is a totally different mentality from you are the engine. You have to go after this. And if you don't, you are a bad man.
Right. Well, and I saw very quickly, you can't save and squander and find deals and almost like minimize your use of money into wealth, right? Like there has to be, an earning more strategy. There has to be an investing strategy. There has to be other things. So anyways, yes, that was where I was. And I started to find some other financial creators and kind of what happens with podcasting. It's so interesting, but you develop a relationship. Like many of your listeners, Jeremy, probably feel like they know you and like you're their best friend, right? Like, oh, he's my SEO guy, even if they've never reached out. But they listen to you, they binge your episodes, they listen to you while they're walking their dog or driving. And that was me. I was sitting there working my spreadsheets all day at work, listening to these financial creators. And they really helped me. And they helped us get out of, $80,000 of debt in like 3.5 years. And we started investing. Like we really turned things around, made a big difference. So all this to say, I turn around and I go to a financial content creation conference. Walk in, of course, I have no idea what I'm walking into, right? I've never been to anything like that in my life, but I was interested and I felt like, oh, like podcast changed my life. Like I got to see what this is about. And I, at the time, launched a podcast of my own to help other moms in my situation. My kids were little at the time, and I was like looking for that non-Dave Ramsey voice. And I was like, let me help at least like moms that are, let me be a mom speaking to moms, right? Like, let me identify and help this specific lane of people. And at that conference, I'm going to say 3, but 2 of them wanted to be co-hosts on a show. So I launched 2 shows coming out of that conference for clients that I didn't even know I was searching for. And from that point on, and all of those 3 people happened to be financial advisors. So from that point on, I was like, okay, this is where I'm being shoved. I'm passionate about the content. I like working with these people. I feel like I can see through their natural awkwardness, because let's just be honest, financial professionals can be pretty awkward, as can, SEO or a medical professional or, the website programmer or whoever, right? Like we all have this awkward streak to us. But I have this ability to see through that and bring out, whether it's they're weird or they're fun or the personal aspects of them that I can see that would connect with people. And we use that to produce their show well. So anyways, that's the long story of like kind of how I got started and just the passion behind it and the background and all that. So I don't want to do finances anymore. I don't want to do audit anymore, but I do love the nerdy nitty gritty of podcasting.
And there's so many benefits to like a small business owner. It can shape their personal branding in a certain way, and that goes not just to the financial niche, but like your HVAC company in Oklahoma City. Like you can like stand out from the people who are just publishing their 500th article on how to handle a leaky faucet. Instead, if you have your founder or the marketing manager running a podcast about home care, and like the cross-pollination possible of like either niching down to the city or the community and your expertise, your professionalism. Like home service is such a rich niche because you can talk to, you've got the same, I call it a nexus of care. It's the home, right? Different industries, there are different nexuses of care, and there's all of these people that are attached to the home. It's like home inspectors, foundation guys, crawl space cleaners, like there are all of these niches in service, commercial real estate agents, whatever it might be, they're all interconnected, like with property, with homes. And so like you have such a potential crossfire audience of like who you bring on as your guest, attaching it back. You could launch if you're selling steaks, you could have chefs on, healthcare professionals, alternative healthcare. Like if you just look at your niche, where are you positioned? What does your audience potentially have interest in? where's the biggest grouping of these people, because that individual conversation can potentially open doors to co-marketing, cross-marketing, cross-promotion. You could send referrals that way. You could literally pitch to your ideal prospect after they've come onto your show and put you into the authority position straight up, and then you get to pitch to them like a tied-in service. Like, that's boom, that's knocking it out of the park. Like,
Yeah.
all of these cold email folk, all of these hard push salespeople, OB, outbound sales positions would die to be, in that power position of just having, having a conversation. Because in that dialogue, as a host to a guest, there's a connection and there's kind of a hierarchy. You're implicitly trusting your host in a certain way to have kind of a bigger reputation on some side, or and so there's a value proposition there, to explore. Like, there's so much potential value to fit that into your small business. You can even white label. I've set up like a white label SEO podcast at SEO Arcade. Like, so you can set up your own podcast separately to help support your brand through link building, through content marketing. Like, there's so many channels that this process can pollinate, and it's rich soil, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think I've seen a couple of arguments, right? It's like, oh, like, there are so many podcasts out there. There's probably one that already talks about what I do, so why do they need me? People look at YouTube channels the same way. It's kind of this like downer perspective of like, why would I do that if everyone else is already doing it? And I would venture, and I forget the numbers at this point, but maybe how many websites are out there. But yet, as a small business owner, you didn't think twice about the fact that you need a website. There are 2 to 4 million podcasts out there, and attrition is really tough. Most people stop podcasting 3 to 10 episodes in. Either they get overwhelmed with the production process, the editing is too hard, they have a hard time finding guests, whatever the challenge is, and they drop off. So of those 2 to 4 million, there's less than 500,000 that are actually active. So for you to get to stand out, just think SEO, right? Like, what if you were only one of 500,000 websites out there? Holy cow, you would be jumping up and down celebrating that you are one of those websites. So that opportunity is still there for podcasting. If you're going to look at numbers and kind of think like, oh, there's somebody that already talks about SEO, for example. Okay, so they're still going to be interested in your voice, your advice, your perspective. Your experience is different than the next SEO guy. And maybe I identify with you more closely, whether it's life stage or education or the type of websites that you like to work on. There's still the opportunity that I find connection with you more than the next SEO guy. So like whatever, podcasting, right? Like there are lots of podcasts about podcasting to get really better. But nonetheless, my show is called Podcasting for Financial Professionals. A, there's not a show for financial professionals specifically. And B, they need me. I know they need me. So I'm going to just go ahead and step up and take that opportunity. So I just want to encourage like anybody that's like, oh, great, like A, one more thing I have to do. B, there's already somebody out there. C, there's already a million podcasts on this topic. Like these are all just excuses. Take advantage of this cross-channel potential that you have sitting in front of you. And then there's like a big opportunity. I don't know if you want to get into SEO show notes or like the descriptions and titles and just kind of what we're probably going to call like basic SEO, but podcasters in general don't know this stuff. And so
No, they
for
don't.
someone who listens to an SEO show, you're going to have a
Yeah.
huge advantage on your own show.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's kind of two thoughts that I have that kind of align on that. One is you wouldn't avoid going into commercial real estate because there's other commercial real estate agents. I'm sorry. You know, like
Right?
like the, yes, what you do is exactly the same in your city and region as somebody else in Seattle is doing. But how you go about it, it doesn't mean that you can't build a personal brand that has its own unique value and aspect. Well, I was talking with interviewing with Bone Dry Roofing, you know, straight up like a roofing. He was the chief marketing officer, and we were just getting down to the brass tacks of like, okay, like there are plenty of people who put roofs on, but we have a mission. We want to be thorough, and we want people after the fact to recognize that we took these extra steps. It's like, I think he said it was like the bone dry reputation, and like they had a specific mission statement, like if you can take your service industry business serious enough to say it's going to have an impact by how we go about these things with integrity, or we are thorough, or we always respond on time. Like humans need more than just clock in, clock out. They need a job that provides some sort of value or additional benefit to it, of like you're doing something. Like there's a fantastic movie from the 80s called Brazil about just being like a worker bee, and this guy has these fantastic adventures in his mind of like this whole office building is like a pirate ship and it's raiding others. But it's just the reflection of the desire of humanity to put more into the universe than just calculating numbers on a sheet. I see, as we give birth to AI, as Morpheus would say, what it's really done is it's given a shortcut to some of this content creation. And yes, I could sit down over the next 5 days and probably create 20,000 articles and get them posted to various sites and stand-up sites and push that content and post that, all of that. But that's not new content. It's not necessarily even particularly helpful content. And if you're Google and you're seeing a whole bunch of unhelpful content going up, you are weighing it in evaluation in comparison to others. And like mass producing bulk amounts of AI generated content is not a good content marketing strategy long term. Yes, there are content marketing pros who show their gains, but then like they don't show the huge dip as Google like kind of detects that there's no brand entity behind it. There's no real heart to it. There's nobody pushing the value of it. There's no people coming back to that site and sharing it. There isn't true ecosystem around it. So yes, you can puff it up, but like it deflates like a flan in the cupboard if you don't actually create something new and unique. So I love the concept of utilizing podcast marketing as a genuine content engine, because one of the things that I always try to do, I try to get the business owner, like I'm in SEO, I want to get my owner to give an interview, because it's so much easier than actually getting okay, could you give me an about page? I've waited 1 week to 6 months to get like 3 paragraphs of the worst, most sales-driven content. But if you recorded that first interview with them, or that first conversation meeting you had, tell me about your business. What are you passionate about? Where do you see this business making a difference in your community? Oh, they'll go on for an hour. And they'll not only go on for an hour, but they'll cite experts. They'll talk about their experience. They'll talk about their history. And you're like, hold on, let me pause, record, transcript. That's about page content. That's supporting your sales page. That's your service page. That's on your contact page, pulling quotes from your founder about that. So whether or not you start a podcast interview, as an SEO, interview your owner, interview your founder, interview the content marketing director for the agency or for the company that you work with, and grab that stuff. But absolutely, give me some fundamentals of like some checklist items, like an SOP. What are some things that you think that a new podcast owner needs to check off? And that can include, including links in your show notes. So give me your checklist, as many things as you can fire off. Do this. It's basic or not basic.
Yeah. So as you were sharing there, I was thinking in my mind, okay, yes, you're going to get this raw content, right? For lack of a better word, from your owner or whoever's doing the interview. And I kind of want to like post a caveat up there. It's like, we're not saying that you can't use AI to help you with your podcast. Once you get those interviews, or even if your owner, let's say you've convinced him to, host his own show, and you're coming up with ideas specifically for your business to help him, talk about the frequently asked questions and answer things and position himself as the expert for this particular service. You can 100% use AI to help prompt that. I have found that, you get the best results, even like scripts for the show. Like, let's say he's nervous on camera. Putting as much of your perspective or your owner's perspective, your company values, all of these things into AI to achieve the results that you want. Not just, hey, like create a script about SEO for podcasts, right? Like that's probably not going to be a great episode. But if I sat there and maybe feed this interview into AI, typed multiple paragraphs of my experience and perspective into it, I could definitely get an amazing script made for my next episode. So anyways, I just wanted to like post that caveat. Okay, so checklist for a new podcast. There is a script starter kit that I want to kind of just throw out there. It is free. It's on my website. And what that does is encourages you to kind of establish, just like you would for a blog or a website, your content pillars, right? Like, what are the top 3 to 5 things that you are always going to be about on your show? And once you identify those topics and those pillars, the next thing you want to identify, like, what's the positioning here? Is this an interview show? Because this show is intended to be a connector. Or is this a show where I, as the owner, am positioning myself as the authority and I'm really elevating my face and my voice and I'm boosting this personal brand? Well, in that case, I'm going to do less interviews and more solo episodes because they need to see you and hear you as the host more often, really grasp it like, hey, she's my gal. That's my guy, right? Like, you want to be in that position if this is about you as the owner. You can vary your structure. You can pull quotes from people. You can do a long interview like this, or you can do these long interviews and then find like the best 5 minutes to feature of that guest. And the rest of the whole episode, besides that 5 minutes where you shared that clip, is you talking about why that clip is relevant. Like, there's so many cool structure things you can do that feed into what your goal of the show is. So this gets into strategy as far as like what you want to do with your show. I shared with Jeremy before we got on here that all my clients' shows are sponsored by their businesses. So what that means is they don't have like a mattress sponsor, right? They might run a commercial where they talk about their webinar that's coming up, or their services that are coming up. So what it all boils down to is, what are your goals with that show? And you can look on practically any website to say, oh, what microphone should I have? Or what camera should I have? Where should I post my episodes? How do you get these syndicated? Like, those are all just things that once you start Googling, you're going to figure it out. But the most important newbie podcaster advice is to really get clear on your goals and your topics and how the structure of your episodes feeds into those goals.
That makes sense. And I mean, I've made a deliberate choice as far as style, and I inherited this unscripted podcast because I was on it from Mark Preston. He interviewed me, and then he wanted to kind of walk away, and I inherited a library of his interviews, and it just kind of fits my style of being unscripted, and I barely even double check who is coming on the show before they pop into the studio, and then away we go. But I know, working with my wife, she was very much like, oh, I want to do my own solo podcast episodes mostly, and occasionally interview people, and her thing was very much more, okay, I need to put together my notes, and there are different, value propositions or processes to those solo episodes. I like that concept of, doing an interview, but then splicing it in, with your commentary on that, which is ridiculously easy, honestly, in Riverside. And I haven't used other, studios, but I'm sure that software like Riverside exists outside of Riverside. I'm super familiar with it. I'm like, you could do that so easy. Just record once, then you record your interview, and you can cut over. Like, it's just a simple dialogue interface. You don't have to hire a $5 million editor producer to have content that's worthwhile. There are layers of expertise. It's funny because there's a guy in my co-working space in Cookeville, and he does podcast editing. And he's like, okay, for most small business owners, you need very minimal editing. There are people who take this on as a lifestyle of being a podcaster with a capital P, and they'll spend $1,000 on their equipment and 50 hours to super produce one episode, but that's because it's their art, and you can take it to that level. You can take it to that Japanese precision of honing down what you do as a podcaster, and you take it so seriously. You've got your own studio, you've got your soundboard, your sound muffling in your studio, and just the perfect setup. Yes, and those that do that, bless their souls, but they're doing it for that purpose. And
for most people, that's overwhelming, right? To be the small business owner and look at these people with a studio and think oh, to start a podcast, I have to do that. And that's been a big piece of why my business grew as fast as it did, because it was I'm at home. I'm in a spare bedroom that is my office. I have a great microphone. I have a webcam. We're using Riverside. I use Riverside when I record my interviews as well. There are low cost, excellent tools. And you, as a business owner or as the marketing mind for the company you're working for, can produce these things fairly easily.
So, as we kind of round this out at the end, what's the takeaway from the conversation? If people were to do one thing after this, to grab onto the value, explore something, what do you think is going to be the most effective thing for them to do this afternoon or tomorrow after they listen to this in our conversation to get the most value?
Yeah, I would like to encourage them to look at any interviews they have done. And if they haven't done any, consider what you might be able to record about, right? So let's say I get these 10 questions all the time on every sales call. I can record. It doesn't even have to be a podcast, but it could be just a simple audio clip, a simple video clip where I am, face to camera answering in my voice with my perspective. And of course, if you're not using video, you can literally like read and animate your voice to where it sounds like you're just talking to them, but you could have it scripted out so that you hit your points. But people are really looking for that personal connection these days. And whether that's through your face or through your voice, video versus audio, if they can hear you, they immediately connect more deeply with you than if you're just a guy on LinkedIn, right? Or a girl on LinkedIn. Look at your content, look at the work that you're doing. If you are working for someone as the face of the business, do they have audio or video content out there? And use that as an opportunity to like cross-pollinate links, in any articles that are written, and that question is in that article. Okay, link to that audio or video, and vice versa. Use these clips to share on social media and start creating that spider web that we've been talking about, and use that cross-channel messaging in it, and take advantage of that for your brand.
I love it. I'll double down on that there's so many links like that you can get out of a podcast ecosystem. There's podcast directories, your guests can link to you. You get access and you're creating subject matter expertise, which you could pitch to journalists if you're doing Haro, help a reporter out, like having a list of industry quotes to pull from. If you have your founder, I'm working with Metaflex Club, and she's talking about, this medical device that helps like relieve arthritis and carpal tunnel. Like I have a hit list of like her expertise where she's talked about both entrepreneurship as like a founder, but also like, her journey as creating a medical device and those are two sides of the same coin, but I'm looking for journalist entries in Haro and Featured and Quoted.com of writers looking for, how do you get medical devices approved, or challenges within the insurance industry, and like getting your medical device approved and as an FSA, as a class 1 medical device. That hey, her quote there fits. So you can tap into multiple link ecosystems, create once and redistribute forever. So just find different distribution channels. So I love that piece of advice. Thank you so much for your time, Virginia. I'll make sure that resource that you mentioned for the it was for the scripts. I'll make sure that gets linked in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. It was a script starter kit. Yeah. Awesome. It's a script starter kit, and it's on my resources page.
I'll make sure that gets linked. I don't have anything personally against scripts, so I just can't use them. All right.
Yeah, it will help even just with pillars of, outlining like what you are going to talk about. You don't have to like fully create the script, but it really helps to write down, hey, here are my like primary topics.
I think those thought exercises are the same types of thought exercises that you should be doing with your content marketing to begin with. So it should be, a double down exercise, and think about, okay, well, if I come back and I'm not thinking about hiring a content writer for this, but I can get this straight from the horse's mouth, or I can hire an expert in this to talk about these with other experts, or straight up, like there's so much value there. So I'll make sure that gets linked in the show notes, and your brand, your site. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.